So after all of this, you've gotten to this point in this video series and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? This does sound pretty interesting to me. Yeah, I would like to pursue a job in the computer networking industry. I'd like to try to get a job in the help desk or maybe as a network admin and eventually become a network architect somewhere. So where do I go from here? You know, I know my computer. Now I know a little bit about what a network is. What are the next steps? All right, step number 1, talk to someone. So you've just heard from me, one source, as far as what these jobs entail. I would recommend you identify a network admin at your work or your school and ask them some questions. Ask them some questions about their job. People always love to talk about themselves, right? If you say, hey, John, you don't know me, but I work in payroll or I work in blah, blah, blah. I think what you do is kind of fascinating. Could I buy you a cup of coffee just to find out more about what you do and how you got here? Guaranteed, John will say, absolutely, I'll take you up on your mocha. Let's go sit down for 20 minutes and talk. So when you sit down with that person, John or Sally or whoever it is, ask them some questions about their job. What do they do? Get them to describe their job. Say, hey, what do you do on a typical day? What's your day look like when you wake up and when you go home for the evening? How often do you have to work off shift? How often are you called in at 3 a.m. and what types of things are happening when you are called in? What kind of experience did they have prior to getting hired? And they'll give you some ideas as to what maybe path you can take to follow in their footsteps. What skills do they consider important for their job? They might tell you certain skills you hadn't even thought of before that might lead you down a certain track as far as your research and your education. What kind of roadmap would they suggest for you, given your current knowledge, skills, and abilities? And sometimes a very simple informational interview like this might actually turn into a real interview. That actually happened for me. So when I worked at Cisco Systems several years back, I was in the TAC. I was in the Technical Assistance Center. So I was basically doing help desk. I was on the phone answering questions about Cisco networking technologies for customers that were having problems or issues with it. And I had heard that there was another job at Cisco called a network consulting engineer. And I thought, that could be kind of interesting. I don't really know what they do. So I set up a meeting and I just sat down. I talked with a manager of the network consulting engineers. I was not doing it to interview. I just want to find out a little bit more like this. What's the job? What do these people do? What's their job role? And it turned into an interview. By the time it was done, the guy said, hey, we'd like to hire you. Why don't you come work in our department? That might happen for you as well. But don't go in there with those kind of expectations. At this point, the idea is just to gather information. Ply people with questions so you can get a better idea of what this job entails. Also, another great resource for you that you can do from the comfort of your living room is watch YouTube videos where network engineers are interviewed. For example, there's a guy that actually came here to INE and his name is Eli the Computer Guy, and I'll put him on here. I'll give him a little plug. And one of the things he does is he just goes around interviewing all sorts of technical people, not just computer networking people, but all sorts of people. And you can see here under interviews, right here, there's several interviews where he came to us and we brought in various network admins and customer support and network engineers, and he talked with them about their job, asking them questions about how they got there and what they did and what they liked about their job. This is a great resource for you to find out answers to questions like, what does the job look like? What did these people do to get there? So just go to YouTube and type in Eli the Computer Guy, and there's all sorts of interviews in here from people that you can learn from. So that's step number 1, is getting a better idea of what the job entails, what people are actually doing out there in the real world, and is this really something you want to pursue? If after doing that, the answer is yes, you still want to investigate it, so now the next step is you have to get some foundational knowledge. You have to start learning some of the terms and the technology and build up your skill set so you can actually apply for stuff. So this is a multi-pronged approach at this point. So what I'd recommend here, let me just drag this out of the way, is next, I would actually recommend that you purchase 2 routers and a switch, or maybe 2 routers and 2 switches. Now there's a reason for this. there's a lot of ways that you can get knowledge of how routers and switches work without actually purchasing one. For example, I'll show you in just a minute, I&E has something called rack rentals, where by spending very little money, you can rent time on existing racks that are already cabled up and learn technologies and practice with them without actually having them whirring away and generating heat in your office or in your bedroom. So why am I recommending that you actually get some real hardware? Well, a couple reasons. First of all, it's cheap. Cisco 3725 routers on eBay cost about $80 each. I also would recommend that you get this model. Why? Well, because I have a video series I'll show you here in just a second talking about an emulator called GNS3. GNS3 is a program you can download for free, and if you have certain Cisco iOS versions, if you have certain versions of Cisco software that runs on their routers, you can actually take that software and put it into GNS3 and create these virtual router environments. You could create an environment where you've got 15 or 20 routers and practice routing protocols and all sorts of stuff, but it only supports certain versions of Cisco software, like this one. So if you actually purchase a Cisco 3725 router off of eBay or something for very little money, not only could you learn things by actually looking at the router and touching the router, but then when you're done with that, you can take that software from that router and now import it into GNS3 and build bigger topologies and practice bigger, more complex things. Cisco 3560 switch, also I'd recommend, those are as cheap as about $100 each. So I'd recommend you get like 2 routers and 2 switches. So you're talking about $300 or $400 here once you add in the cables and everything. So why do this? Why do we need physical equipment? Because there's some, especially if you're going to work as a network admin, okay? So if you're actually going to be dealing with routers and switches, plugging them in, installing them, upgrading them, there's certain things that you can only learn by having hands-on experience that no emulator, no remote rack will give you experience with. For example, how to connect your laptop to console ports. If you're working as a network engineer or a network admin, you're going to have to carry your laptop into the lab and plug it into a router switch to get access to it. Can't practice that if you don't have a router switch to actually use at home and practice with. LED status and what they mean. The lights on the outsides of these routers and switches flash, they blink, they have different colors, different color combinations. It's useful to be able to see that and understand what they're doing and what it means. What can I expect when I take a cable and yank it out? What's going to happen to the LED? What's going to happen when I plug a cable in? What's going to happen when I miscable stuff? So cabling experience, creating a cable. One of the things that network admins sometimes have to do is create cables themselves. They might have big, long spools of cable, and they have to cut it and apply little ends to it. Learning how to do that kind of thing. Actually touching and feeling a cable and seeing what different cables look like and what the connectors look like is very valuable experience that you can't get by working on remote or virtual equipment. Certainly knowing how to upgrade and downgrade software is something you'll have to know as a network admin or a network engineer or even a network architect. And while that's something you might be able to do on a remote rack, lots of things can go wrong. And when it goes wrong, you want to have the equipment right there so you can practice what's called disaster recovery. Can't do disaster recovery if we're not in front of a device physically able to touch it. And password recovery. Once again, if I'm on a remote rack or remote system and I type in the wrong password, I'm done. I'm locked out. There's nothing I can do. Password recovery is when you're actually physically in front of a router or switch. How do you get into that thing if you forgot what the password is? So there's various processes depending on the router and switch you have that walk you through that. And it's useful to be able to have that experience. And sniffer traces. I'm a big proponent of capturing sniffer traces. As you're learning about things that exchange information between routers or between switches, I think there's no better way to learn it than to actually see that data. So a packet capture program, a sniffer, is something you can run on your laptop. There's one you can download right now, as a matter of fact, without any equipment whatsoever. I'll show you here. If you go to, Let me open this up. If you go to Wireshark, wireshark.org. Wireshark is an example of a free packet capture program. You can download it right here. It doesn't cost anything. And when you start it up, I'll show you what it looks like. So when you start up Wireshark, remember you've got a network interface card in your laptop, in your PC. So Wireshark actually gives you the ability to see or sniff everything coming in and going out of that interface card. So for example, if I just sniff here on my wireless network connection, just stop it for a moment here. Every line in here, every horizontal line is an example of a piece of information, what we call a packet, that was captured over the Wi-Fi. So for example, when you're learning about networking technology, ARP, the Address Resolution Protocol, that's something that you're going to have to learn about. Well, it's one thing to read about ARP in a book. It's another thing to actually capture an ARP packet like here and to be able to open it up and see all the components and all the fields that are inside that packet. When it comes to routing protocols, I love using Wireshark to really dig into a routing protocol. As you start learning about networking, you'll learn that routing protocols have certain messages. For example, there's a message that a router uses to discover another router. It's good to be able to actually see what that message is and all the pieces in there. There's another message that the router uses to say, hey, neighboring router, here's the stuff I know about. Here's the paths I know about throughout the network. It's good to be able to see that in Wireshark and actually see it. So if you actually have equipment in front of you, a router and a switch, you can connect your laptop to it, run Wireshark, and actually see all these messages and everything that goes back and forth. That's something you can't do if you're dealing with remote equipment. I would actually recommend, even before you purchase a router switch, you download Wireshark right now, as soon as you're done with this video, and just turn it on and start looking at what's on your network and start digging into these various messages and Googling stuff and finding out what's going on. Costs you nothing to do that. So those are some of the reasons why you would want to get real equipment to practice. But a good portion of what you can learn goes beyond this. A good portion of the things you'll need to learn as a network admin can actually be done on either emulated environments, it's all on your laptop or PC, or by logging into some virtual or some remote racks. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that right now. So let's start talking about emulated environments. If you go to our website, ine.com, let me expand this a little bit. And if you look in our, actually if you log into the members, so that's members.ine.com. Like I said, this is free to create a username and login on here, it's free. From here, if you click on All Access Pass, you'll see a listing of every single video that we have. All the videos we have broken out by different titles and technologies. And somewhere in here, there is a section on GNS3. Let me just locate that. It's a little bit down. Where is GNS3? Actually, well, here's one way I can find it. Under the search field, I'll just type GNS3. There we go. Getting started with GNS3. Taught by yours truly. So you can see it's basically 5.5 hours of talking about this software program called GNS3. What is it? How to download it? How to set it up and get it to work? And GNS3 is an awesome utility once you download, and this is also, you can download it for free. GNS3 doesn't cost anything. But once you've got GNS3 running and you've got certain types of Cisco iOS on your laptop, you can import that iOS into GNS3. And then open a project. You can create projects like, let's see here. Here's one. In GNS3, I create this project that has, what does it look like here? About 6 routers and a hub, so I could practice routing protocols. I didn't need to buy 6 routers. I didn't need to buy a hub. Just by having a single Cisco iOS image, I was able to import it in and now create this virtual topology. And when I start this up and log into these routers, I will actually be using real Cisco networking software to practice and learn. So the GNS3 tool itself is free. You just need to be able to find your Cisco iOS software to put into it. And that's one reason why I suggested the Cisco 3725 router that you buy from eBay. So that's one thing. There's other networking software out there or emulators out there. There's something that Cisco puts out called Viral, which I think stands for the Virtual Internet Routing Lab. That's not free. That costs a little bit of money, but there's a variety of them out there. So that's one way you can practice. Another way you can practice, which I really recommend, is a lot of these virtual programs like GNS3 and Viral. They're really great for learning routers, not so great for switches. There's a lot of switching features that, as of this recording in 2017, they still don't support. So if you want to learn switching, which you'll need to know switching to be a network admin or above, it's really best to work with real physical switches. Now, you may not want to buy 4 or 5 or 6 switches and have them in your house. This is where iNeeds Rack Rentals can come into very good use. So once again, if you log on to our members dashboard, and over here you see Rack Rentals. If you click on Rack Rentals, you can see we have a huge data center that's located in Nevada that's got racks and racks and racks of equipment. Routers and switches are put together in various different topologies and configurations. We have routing and switching racks. We have CCNA, CCNP routing and switching. So I would recommend that you purchase some tokens through I&E. A token, basically, one token is good for a unit of time. So for example, here, if you're dealing with our CCNA routing and switching racks, which gives you access to 4 physical routers and 3 physical switches already cabled up and ready to go, that costs 3 tokens per hour. And if I go back a little bit, if up in the upper left corner here, if you click on Purchase Tokens, you can see you can purchase tokens in various different configurations. For example, you can get just $100. 100 tokens will get you roughly 30 or 33 hours of practice on our CCNA and CCNP racks. And then when you need a little bit more complex of a topology, for example, if you want to practice on security with some security devices, or you want to practice on larger topologies to have 15 or 20 or 30 routers, you can work on the CCIE racks. Now you might be wondering, once again, well, how do I use these racks? Before I spend any money on tokens, I want to know, what does this look like if I start using it? Well, once again, go back to the members dashboard and click on All Access Pass, and you'll see there's a video series. Let's see here, where is that one located? I'll just say Rack. How to use I&E's Rack Rental System for CCNA and CCNP preparation. So this is slightly less than 2 hours. It doesn't take very long, but this course is all about our rack rentals. Why would you use rack rentals? How do these tokens work? How do you schedule a rack? How do you get into your rack? How do you actually use it? So I'd recommend reading through this, or actually watching these videos, to get a better idea of how rack rentals actually operates. Now you might be saying, well, Keith, this is all well and good, but if I click on these videos, nothing is happening. How do I actually watch these videos? So it is true that for free, just by creating a members account, you can see what videos we have. You can see the listing here, and you can go through this and see all the different videos that we have. But how do you actually watch these videos? There's a variety of ways to get access to our videos. You can purchase videos in a package. For example, if you were preparing for a certain certification like the Cisco CCNA certification, we provide a package of videos for CCNA where you get several videos, maybe a workbook to practice with for a certain price, like $100 or $200 or $300, something like that. At the other end of the scale, we have something called an All Access Pass. So when I was clicking on, right here from my members account, when I was clicking on All Access Pass, an All Access Pass is a subscription for like 6 months or a year or 2 years. And when you purchase an All Access Pass subscription, you literally have access to everything. Every single video we have in this entire list, and you can see if I just scroll and scroll and scroll, there's tons of them here. All these are available for All Access Pass members. So it's up to you. All Access Pass is great because it gives you the widest variety of videos you can choose from to watch. Some of these videos are only available for All Access Pass members. Other videos are available as packages, like a CCNA or a CCNP package. But you'll have to purchase it in some way, and I just recommend you talk to our I&E sales department to figure out what's the best for you based on what you would like and what you need to see. Okay. I'm also getting a question here from the live audience. So how to use the racks in the I&E labs. So I think I've already answered that. Just go ahead and look at that one video series on how to use I&E's rack rentals. And a lot of these video series, our production manager will take some of the videos, like maybe the first 2 or 3 videos, and put them on YouTube for free. So you can get a taste for it. So for example, if I go to youtube.com, and over here, I&E training, we have our own channel. And from here you can see there's a lot of videos you can watch for free. So a lot of these video series, it might have 20 or 30 or 40 videos in the series. A lot of times 4 or 5 or 6 of them we'll put for free here on YouTube so you can get a taste of it. So you can just scroll through here and see various videos that we have available. And there's a lot of them for free on YouTube. Another question is, as far as GNS3 versus Packet Tracer, which one is better? So I mentioned and I showed you GNS3, and you can go to gns3.com, and from there you can download the GNS3 software. So right there, free download, and then you just need Cisco iOS software to import into that to create these virtual router topologies. Well, GNS3 is not the only one that does that. Packet Tracer, Viral, there's other ones. So personally, if it comes to a comparison between GNS3 and Packet Tracer, I always point people towards GNS3. Packet Tracer is like emulated software. It's not the real Cisco software. It's someone created code that's supposed to look and feel like Cisco software, but it's not real Cisco software. So there's a lot of things that Packet Tracer can't do. GNS3, in order to make it work, you actually have to load real, genuine Cisco iOS software into GNS3. And once you've got it, you've basically got a real router. Anything a router could do, GNS3 can do. So there's a lot more things you can do in GNS3 than you can do in Packet Tracer. The last thing I want to talk about is certifications. Now, clearly, Cisco is not the only company out there that does networking. There's Juniper, there's Arista, there's Ruckus, there's all sorts of companies out there that do networking. But if you are applying for a job as a help desk support engineer or a network administrator position, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I've read through 5,000 hours of books, and I've downloaded GNS3 and I've practiced on labs, and I've gotten into I&E's rack rentals and I've practiced stuff. Well, that sounds well and good, but how do you prove it? Anybody could walk into a job interview and say that stuff. So what employers are often looking for are certifications. A certification means you went and you took an official test somewhere that tested you on your knowledge. Did you really retain? Do you really understand what you read, what you practiced? And by being able to show that you're certified proves that you know something. You can actually do something. So I'm just going to focus here on Cisco certifications, but there are others as well out there. When it comes to networking, Cisco certifications are pretty much known as the premier networking certifications. Everybody has a good idea that Cisco certifications mean you can do something. You know stuff. So as far as Cisco certifications are concerned, they start at the low level, which is the entry level certifications, and then they go all the way up to architect. So from the top to the bottom here is an increasing level of complexity, requiring more and more experience, more and more knowledge, skills, and ability. So I'd like to go to Cisco's website for a second. and take a look at their certifications, and this is a good place for you to start. So I'll just go to Google and type in Cisco certifications. And so this fourth link down here, certifications and training and certifications, if you click on that, this is sort of like their launching website where you can go and learn about all the different certifications that Cisco has. And I'd recommend, when it says here, not sure which certification to pursue, click on that where it says explore the career guide. And so here you can actually walk through, what are you interested in, and it ends up by telling you what certifications are available based on your interest level. Another way you can look at this, it starts out with the entry-level certifications, for example, the CCENT and the CCT, and then they get progressively harder. So if you're thinking about pursuing a career in the networking industry, you're going to want to start out at the entry level and the associate positions or places on this website. I'd recommend that you start at the CCT. So the CCT is a fairly new certification, the Cisco Certified Technician, and this starts at the base level, at the ground level. I'd recommend that you explore that, and then once you get your CCT, then pursue your CCNA. Once you've got a CCT and a CCNA, and with CCNA, you can see there's CCNA specialties, and we talked about specialties like security, wireless, service provider. What I usually recommend and other people recommend is that you start out with routing and switching. Routing and switching is the foundation or the basis for everything. You can't really do very well in security or data center or wireless if you don't know routing and switching. Everything connects to routing and switching infrastructure. So I'd say step number one, pursue your CCT. That's the number one thing you should do. Once you've got that, step number two, pursue a CCNA routing and switching. And if you're serious about pursuing a career as a network admin, I'd also say step number three would be to go to the CCNP routing and switching. That would be step number three. Once you've gotten those certifications, the CCT, CCNA routing and switching, and CCNP routing and switching, then I think you're in a good place to branch off into a specialty. I personally would not recommend that you pursue specialties such as collaboration or wireless or security until you've gotten your CCNA routing and switching and your CCNP routing and switching. Then you've got really good, rock solid foundational knowledge to understand these specialties and what they're doing. So I'd recommend that you go with that. So with that, that concludes this video series on an introduction to networking technology. Hopefully after having watched this, you have a better idea of what careers are available in the computer networking industry, what it looks like and means to work in the computer networking industry, what the differences are between a network admin, engineer, and architect, and hopefully this has whet your appetite to start pursuing these as a new career. Thank you very much for watching.